For more on this topic of unintended consequences and how they might play out in the current mission in Iraq and what we can learn from previous conflicts, we're joined by Daveed Gartenstein-Ross. He's Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He also teaches at Georgetown University's Security Studies program, where his research focuses on the challenges posed by violent militias. Let's go back to Robert Gates. He said during his Senate confirmation hearings, "I think that we have seen in Iraq that once war is unleashed, it becomes unpredictable." And I think that's kind of the thrust of all of this, which is an acknowledgement that things you may think that this is what's going to happen, but something else may happen. So let's take what's happening right now in Iraq. What are the potential good things that could come out of it? What are some of the things that people may not be looking at that could be the unintended consequences?
Well, there's not a whole lot, I think, that's good that's going to come out of it. But if you look at U.S. military action in Iraq, it's designed right now to arrest the momentum of the Islamic State. It's doing so pretty well. But there's this enormous debate in the United States about how much more do we need to commit. And one of those debates is, should we commit a massive amount of ground forces? That's where I think we get most into the realm of unintended consequences, that as soon as you have 10, 15,000 conventional troops that are committed to the conflict, it creates a lot of possible second-order problems. Not only could they be targeted by ISIS, but you also have Iranian militias who may target them. They may be seen as an occupying force and may serve as a rallying cry by the Islamic State. That's why I think, in general, we're better off going in with a lighter footprint in Iraq specifically, while at the same time trying to make sure that we're accomplishing our objectives.
Just last night, Michael Shank he's a senior policy advisor for U.S. Congressman Mike Honda in a past life. He was on talking about this subject, and I want to play some sound from him, and I want to get your reaction to it. So let's listen.
Despite our track record, we armed and trained the Mujahideen in Pakistan. They used it against us. We armed and trained the warlords in Afghanistan. They used it against us. We armed and trained the rebels in Syria. They're using it against us. We armed and trained the rebels in Libya. They're using it against us. We armed and trained the sons of Iraq, and now they're using it against us.
The key thing I think that you would like to tap into is Libya. People don't talk about it much, but you say that is an area where the unintended consequences are evident today.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why, at the time, I opposed the intervention in Libya. I mean, there's a few different areas that I think are quite important, one of which is that the decision itself was known at the time to hasten the Arab Spring, at a time when we still didn't have a real handle on what the outcome would be in Egypt, what the outcome would be in Tunisia. I think that one thing that people have not explored enough is the connection between our intervention in Libya and what happened in Syria, both giving encouragement to Syrian rebels that there might be an intervention to help them, number one, and number two, the flow of arms and also of fighters from Libya into Syria. But you can also see much more direct consequences in Mali. I mean, the jihadist takeover of northern Mali and the later French intervention is a direct consequence, because you had a lot of Tuaregs who were part of Gaddafi's forces, mercenaries, who, when Gaddafi's regime fell, ended up going back into northern Mali, where there was a Tuareg separatist movement. They brought a lot of arms back in with them, and that ended up hastening events there, and jihadists were able to ultimately co-opt it. But it's extremely important and very destabilizing to the region.
Is it wrong for the United States administrations then to say Gaddafi's got to go, Mubarak's got to go, Yanukovych has got to go? Are those bad steps as well?
I think that your decision should not always be inaction. It should always be no. In the case of Mubarak, I think it was a fait accompli. I don't think that the U.S. could have stopped him from falling, and I think we would have been on the wrong side of that one. And in the case of Gaddafi, on the other hand, he wouldn't have fallen on his own. And when you look at what's happened in Libya, it's a tough call, because A, he was a brutal dictator. Nobody has love for Gaddafi. And B, he would have killed a lot of people. But the flip side is a lot of people died anyway in the chaos that followed. It's hard to say that, okay, a dictator being in power might have been better. But at the same time, I think we certainly see that in Iraq, where you've had well over 100,000 people die after the fall of Saddam Hussein. And I think we're getting to the point where a lot of people are feeling the same way about Libya, that the intervention it may well, in many people's view, and in mine as well, have done more harm than good.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming in and talking about this subject. I'm sure we'll be talking about it again in the future.
My pleasure.